Welcome back to the Self Love Archives podcast. I'm your host, Julia Salvia, your self love bestie, and we have a special episode today because I am chatting with the author of It's Complicated, Philippa Found. This is a book of collected confessions of messy modern love, and I cannot wait for you to hear this conversation with her. So get ready, stay tuned, and keep watching and keep listening if you want to hear all about it. So I am so excited to introduce all of you to Philippa Found, the author of It's Complicated Collected Confessions of Messy Modern Love. There's over 200. Look at, we both have our copies right here. And I love the colors of this. I already said that is what drew me to the book in the first place. It's such a beautiful book, and it's filled with 250 stories
Yeah.
about complicated love, like confessions. Please tell me everything. How did you get your hands on 250 stories of everyone's relationships?
Well, um, it started back in lockdown. So it was like 2020, spring 2020. And I built a website. I just thought this time is crazy, right? I mean, like it was just such a massive shift. And I just thought the impact it's going to have on people's relationships, whether they're single or dating or in a long-term relationship, whatever, is going to be like massive. And I was just fascinated. And I thought, like, what is actually going on, and do people have an outlet for this, because we were separated from our friends and family. And it seemed like this time to me where it was like the perfect storm for being kind of stuck in the continual scroll of like online and social media, but also disconnected from like those real intimate encounters with people you actually know and love, where you can share.
Yes.
So I built this website called lockdownlovestories.com, and invited people to, well, I say invited people. What I did was every day on my like daily walk in lockdown, I'd go out with my daughter's chalks, and I chalked the website URL through parks in London. And
Oh,
yeah, so people would go, just like go on their walks every day and see this like www.lockdownlovestories.com, be like, what the hell is this? And you'd like land on this web page, and it basically just said, what's going on in your love life? Like, share it with me. And it allowed you to submit completely anonymously, and then the stories would land in my inbox, and I'd upload them onto the website, and then also brought them onto Instagram. And the response from people following the project was just incredible, like a real community built up around the project, and just a really kind of supportive, like, whoa, this is me, this is so relatable, this could be my life, which really encouraged other people to share. And so in the course of the project, I actually gathered 1,500 stories. And it's just
wow.
we couldn't make a book thick enough to fit them all in. So there's
Yeah.
250 here, and they take you through every aspect of relationships. I arranged the book, I curated it like through relationship statuses. So it starts with a chapter on exes, and then being single, hooking up, dating, situationships, which is called It's Complicated, friends and family, in a relationship, and breakups. So it takes you through the whole spectrum. And yeah, that's how I gathered all these anonymous stories from like everyday normal people like you and I.
Yeah, and it takes out the shame of, I think, the anonymity. This one word I cannot say, but it leaving it like anonymous for anyone to share their story really takes out the shame of, allowing them to share without the shame, but and to be vulnerable without someone kind of tying the story to their person, essentially.
Totally.
But I was gonna say, like, I bet you the minute they saw the responses to their own story, they were like, oh my gosh, wow. Like,
Well, that's when
there's
I
other
was kind of,
people.
yeah. And I was nervous at first when I brought it over to Instagram, because obviously you're then opening it up to people's comments. And the one
Yes.
thing that I was really conscious of was that the entire purpose of the project was like no shaming. It was, it was the antithesis of that. Um, and so, I was nervous. Like, what if people start writing really shaming things about these stories? I didn't want anything to inhibit people feeling able to share their stories. But
Mhm.
luckily, the community just got it. They totally respected it and really just did not get comments like that at all. Um, and yeah, I think the anonymity thing was absolutely key. Like, there's just no way I wouldn't have got the stories that I got if you'd had to put your name to it. And that was the point. Like, I wanted to create something that was essentially the antithesis to social media, where you're putting like visuals and your name to it, and actually be like, okay, but that's just one story. What's the other story? What are we not actually talking about, but what's really going on? And that was what I was really kind of surprised but proud of, I guess, that people immediately started sending me not just the happy love stories, because I was kind of expecting those, like, oh, I've just met this guy
Yeah.
or whatever. But actually just getting down to the real stuff the more complicated stuff that we don't openly talk about. And that's where I think the real value is, because you get to bear witness to these stories that you otherwise wouldn't have access to and better understand what relationships are really like. And I found it incredible, that experience.
No, it for sure is so incredible the amount of vulnerability that it takes to just share your story. And if being anonymous allows for that opening for you to do that as a person to help yourself, but to also I guess simultaneously help others is such an amazing thing. And as someone who's been on social media for a long time, it's so great to hear that people did get it and there wasn't shaming in the comments or response to these
Yeah.
vulnerable stories.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, how do I create something as like an artist? Because for me, it started as an artwork essentially. Like, the website was the work of art. Like, people's submissions were like their little kind of anonymous portraits, and I was kind of
Mm-hmm.
building this portrait of what our love lives are really like in this moment in time. And for me, I was thinking like, I have been able to go to therapy, and that's like a real privilege. And the benefit of therapy is not just that unburdening, but I guess when I'd say stuff that I thought was like really unique to me, my therapist would sometimes be like, yeah, actually, you'd be surprised how many times people say that to me. And I'd be like, really?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that actually I found much more comfort in, was like, oh, wait, so it's not just me. And so that's what
Yeah.
I was trying to replicate in the project, this idea of this me too, essentially. Because there's one thing to be able to share your story, but it's the recognition of yourself in others, the me too, the knowing it's not just you, which is actually what counters shame. And so that's where the real kind of value comes in, I think.
No, definitely 100%. I think there's so much value in that, and so much value in, especially if someone doesn't have the privilege to be able to talk to someone, whether it's a therapist, a friend, family member, anyone. This gave them the outlet to do exactly that, and in return hopefully find some solace in a story that may be challenging or might have been hard for them to go through.
And that was what was really nice, is that even though its roots were entirely anonymous, often what would happen was I would post the story on Instagram, and then the person would like slide into my DMs and out themselves and be like, "That's my story," and that was like so great, because then I got to actually connect with the submitter and hear their experience of sharing. And it was so validating, I think, so encouraging. Like, as an artist, you're often at a disconnect from how your work lands. And so to actually be able to have like these real people like coming into my inbox and being like, sharing it has really helped me and thank you so much. It was just like, it was incredible. Like, the community around it just really sort of kept me going and believing in the project for so long that it still exists today. Um,
Yeah, I think that's so incredible and so true. Now, in regards to shame, I
yes.
know there was where a point where you talked about the seven relationship shames without kind of giving too much away. I don't want you to give all the juicy stuff away.
Oh.
What can you speak to maybe one of them that maybe came up as you were putting together all of these submissions and something that you were just so incredibly surprised at how many people felt maybe shame in this way?
I'll give you two because then you can pick the one you want to kind of roll
Okay.
with. Um, one of the ones was that we often people don't get over exes, like we don't move on. I think I had this perception that everyone was like blocking, deleting, and moving on in like a timely manner, whatever that time was. And people were just nailing it, like moving on, living their best life. And actually, what the stories revealed is that often that is actually not the case, and it's like incredibly common for people to be like decades on still thinking about an ex. Um, and the other theme that another theme that came up was this idea of being single but wanting to be in a relationship and almost feeling shamed by the toxic positivity that's out about self-love and just, oh, you just need
Yeah.
to love yourself harder, that in some way, that if you were single but wanted to be in a relationship, you were failing to love yourself enough. And I found that so fascinating that there's been this cultural switch that
Yes.
that yeah, that self-love could be sort of turned on you in a way, and that it was your fault if you wanted something you didn't have. In a way, you just need to love yourself more, do more work on yourself.
And you know what's interesting is as you say that, like, I've actually seen a lot online now too, where you're being shamed the opposite way, being shamed for being in a relationship because of self love. Like, you don't love yourself enough if you're in a relationship. It's kind of like both sides when I truly believe at the core, you don't need to love yourself in totality. I also don't believe that self-love is a destination. It's something you constantly choose to do for yourself, but you don't need to love yourself to be in a relationship or have relationships, but you need to have self-respect and have self-love for yourself to know your worth and know what you deserve. But I don't
Yes,
think that you can't have one and not the other. And it's
exactly. And
weird
it's
that people
just
would shame for that.
yeah, and I think it was a particular. I do think the pendulum has swung now, as you're
Yeah.
saying, to this way. That is having a boyfriend embarrassing, where it's actually seen as
Yes.
like kind of a sign of strength to be single, and it's like, oh yeah, you go. You don't need these terrible men. Um, but I think at the particular moment, or at least what I was picking up on, was that because that so many men are awful, and because dating
Mhm.
and like dating apps are so terrible, the kind of still desire to engage in that and want to find someone if single was almost being met as that's a weakness. And it's almost like this kind of I felt a lot of single people were feeling misunderstood and shut down in a way. That it was just, oh, you'll find someone, or oh, you just need to love yourself more, or do some work on yourself. And it's like that, but that toxic positivity that is dismissive and invalidating, and was a real source of pain and shame for people. And that was interesting to me, I guess.
Yeah, that's definitely so interesting. And it makes my heart hurt a little. I'm like, no, don't feel like that. That's not true. um now I think that we all think that I know from experience too that we all think that we are too much. And I
Yes.
think that we all think that we're either not good enough or we're too much for someone. What's kind of your take on that? I think a lot of my listeners are kind of on either side of the spectrum or feel both ways where they're either too much for someone or they're not enough. And they either feel that way in a relationship with someone or they feel that just existing.
So I am someone who definitely thought they were too much, and probably was told a lot that I'm too much. And I think that's like both culturally as well as like personally. But I the book changed my entire, or the submissions changed my entire perspective on that. Like, and that's probably like the best gift it's given me, really. I've just come to realize that too much is the biggest lie we've ever been sold to oppress us. I think it is a lie that serves patriarchy, and it
Mm-hmm.
oppresses women's experience, and it enables bad behavior, because then if we speak out about it, we're the ones that are like too much. So I just radically believe in being too much now as a kind of,
I love it.
you know, because I
I'm
think
gonna say
it's,
that now from now on too. If there's ever a moment where I think I'm being too much, I radically believe that I
yeah,
need to
it's
be too much. That's all
yeah.
that there is.
100%. I just think it's been a way to silence women's stories and women's completely
Yes.
normal experiences for so long, and it's worked so well. And
Mhm.
yeah, the biggest yeah, it was just like the biggest reveal to me was like, oh no, you're not too much. You're just feeling, you're just human. You're just real, you know? Um,
Yeah.
so I hope other people get that from the book as well.
I hope so too. And this kind of connects back to I know that recently, or as the book was coming out, you were going through a divorce.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I
Now,
still am.
you still are. Well,
I still
how is like sitting with these 1500 stories from other people helped you be kinder to yourself through going
Well,
through a divorce?
it was absolutely that kind of self-acceptance, I guess. The idea that I used to think, I guess I used to not trust my feelings in a way, because I
Mm,
thought that they were the thing that was wrong. They were the things that are too much, and the problem was me. Whereas now I have learned that feelings are actually are they're normal. They're feelings, and they're a guide, and you actually do really well to listen to them. And I just think it is that kind of radical acceptance, that whatever you're going through, someone else is going through it as well. Other people have gone
mhm.
through it, they're currently going through it. And it's just so reassuring, because it shows you it's not just you. There is not something weird and fundamentally wrong with you, or how you feel, or how you think, or how you behave. And that, like, normalizing it is incredibly therapeutic in a way, and just very freeing, I think. Yeah, so I've just
Yeah.
been a lot more kinder and accepting of my feelings, I guess. It's given me hope, like, as much as
Mhm.
like the kind of darker stories give you reassurance, like it's not just me. The happy stories give you hope that, oh, it could be me, and I think that's the beauty of
Yeah.
other people's real stories. Like, these aren't fiction. These are not like two characters in a book that, found love, and you can be like, oh, that's great, and you close a page, and you're like, but actually that's just a book or a film or whatever. It's like made up.
Yeah.
It's like, this is real. Like, this happened to real people, so it can happen to us too. you know.
Yes. Yes. No, that's exactly like how I find so much more value in a story that's coming from a real person. And I wish that more people would be vulnerable and would share their stories, because I really think that the response is always really going to be kind, because being vulnerable and sharing something, whether it is something that's so happy, because sometimes we don't want to celebrate our successes, or because we think people are going to shame us for the things that are making us really happy or the things we're really proud of. I just think that if we communicated more with each other and with the world, that we would find so much more community in all of what exists.
Yeah, it's like the as you said, the submissions are so raw and vulnerable and relatable, that they just incite empathy, and is storytelling as a way that we can connect to other people, and realize our shared humanity, essentially. Like, we live in
Mhm.
such like polarized times, but essentially we're all
Yes.
human. We all feel, we all experience love and all these different states, and it's something that bypasses, age, race, everything. Um, and yeah, I mean, the platform. might be the great, like the first stepping stone for anyone who wants to like kind of brave sharing, because it's anonymous, so there's no repercussions to you. You can share your story through the platform. Yeah, we're here for it.
I think that the isolation too of COVID and lockdown brings out even more shame within us. And by sharing, we are finally, as you said, like we're just recognizing that we're not alone and that we're able to have, I always say, like, we're able to feel multiple things at once. We're able to be happy about something and also sad about something, or we're grieving but also happy that it happened, or happy of, what's coming next, what's in the future. And sometimes when others share that perspective, it allows us to be more open and not so black and white.
Totally, it's that beautiful thing, like my therapist always says, like both things can be true. It can be this and
Yes.
that.
Yes.
And I think what the stories also show is because they're a snapshot. So what you're getting is a lot of like unresolved stories.
Mm.
There's so in a way, it's not just these stories are not just like neat bow happy endings. They're
Mm.
just much more conflicted, and you get the dark as well as the light, and the conflicted as well as the resolved, and there is something really reassuring in that. It kind of feeds back to your last question about how did they help me. I guess what the books also show is that everything is constantly evolving. Like your feelings won't stay the same about
Mm.
something, and some of these stories in the book have follow-up stories, so it like tracks a relationship or a
Yes.
person over a couple of years. um, and so you can see like this story and then the update story, and see how that develops and plays out, and you realize that someone that was in the pit of like depression and feeling just completely untethered and lost comes back a year later and is like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much my life has changed, and there's something really beautiful in that.
It's so cool that you were able to like get those and capture that as well. Um, because I know I was reading some and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope this one comes back around where like there was like a cliffhanger and I'm like, no, I want to know what happens.
I know, so do I. Like everyone who's seen it, story, please send an update. There are so many of them that I don't know what happened, but there are so many that did, and like the community online loved the update stories because they were like, "Oh my God, what's happened?" Like because you feel so invested, like you feel like you knew these
Yeah.
people, and like, oh my God, the twists and the turns, like, oh my
Yeah.
God,
Like
like
I didn't
especially in
think
the
that was gonna
exes.
happen.
I know so many people got back together, and it was like, oh my God.
Now, I have a little I have a question that is really interesting because we are really, now that we have very much passed like lockdown at this point in 2026, there's been a lot of chatter about people going to AI for relationship advice. Where do you think, there's obviously a very clear difference because we're real people versus technology, but
Yeah.
how do you think that kind of differs, and where would the concern be, and what do you actually think people need instead?
Oh, um, I, do you know what? I was at a book club, like reading of my book recently, and someone said, like, I wonder, what I'd be really interested in seeing now is like how AI is playing out in people's love lives. And you're right, like, I haven't had a story about that yet. I did, I had other stories of like catfishing and stuff, just because, online is what it is. Um, I think it's just we're going more and more into technology and further away from in real life connection. And,
Mm.
while the community that built up online around the project was absolutely such a lifeline in that time, what we all want is in like is real connection ultimately. Like we want to get off the app and meet the person in real life. We want to be like not sexting, we want to be having sex in real life. Like whatever it is, like the physicality is what we need. And AI is like just pushing it back. Like we're just, yeah, you can hear my voice. I'm like, no, no, no. I just feel like AI is just like a load of words. Like sometimes you'll see that someone sent you an email or a text using AI, and you're like, it's literally just a string of words, but like where's the action? Like it doesn't mean anything.
Yes.
It's just flattening and reductive, and what we need is more like heart and soul, and that is one thing
Mhm.
AI does not have. I said to my
No,
therapist the other week, like, "You worried about like being replaced by AI?" And he was like, "No, because AI doesn't have a heart and it can never do that." And I just thought, yeah, that's what we really need to hold on to, basically. And hopefully, like, it will come round. People will want the realness again.
yeah. I think it's very I think it's interesting to utilize things that are like coming up and utilize them in the best way, but to understand them in order to actually utilize them in a way that's helpful and also recognize the detriment that certain things can cause as well, because there's always kind of like a positive and negative to everything. But I think that going to AI for relationship advice, I would definitely, I don't know if I would
Yeah,
do that. I sure as hell definitely would not um try to have a relationship with AI, because you're right, it doesn't have a heart. And I some of these a couple of people trying to utilize AI as like a companion is interesting. And it makes me sad because I'm like, just
yeah.
go do something and say hello.
In like, not to state the obvious, but how you can have sex with AI, like, it's not gonna be that. Great.
It's not going to be fun. But it's so true. It's so true. It really is. And I dare I say too that I think that the only reason why some people may be leaning on AI like that is because if I were to look back like a decade ago and I were to say hello to someone on the street, it was more normal, like normalized. And now I was just on a walk this morning and I said hello to this elderly man just walking by, and he sounds so surprised that I even said hello.
Oh God, it's really, it is sad.
I was like, "What do you
Like,
mean? No one else said hello to you on this walk?"
yeah, it's really interesting actually, because I remember in lockdown as well, we were so starved of those micro interactions. I can remember how, like, when we first were allowed to go out and like go into coffee shops again, it was like, hello, and you realize how much like
Yeah.
everyday tiny interactions are so fundamental to your well-being. And so, as we get further and further away and there's more screens and like not even a real
Mhm.
person on the other side of the screen anymore, we are getting pushed more and more the other way. I think, AI, like everything else, is great when it is a tool that can enable access to certain things that you otherwise wouldn't have access to, like therapy. But
Exactly.
let's, not remember that it is not a therapist at the other end of that.
Mhm.
It's like, I don't know what it is. Like, it's an algorithm, it's a bot, I'm not sure. But it's, it's a tool, but I think it has to be used with a pinch of salt. Very much so. Also,
Yes.
like, what the hell is it doing to all our information? Like, what is it harvesting? Like, I don't even like. Ugh, I don't trust it.
sometimes sometimes the ignorance of not of like not wanting to know is lovely in this dreamy world, but it definitely is going somewhere. And
I
I
know.
guess we'll see in time as
Yeah.
we see these stories come to life in time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
And maybe
Hopefully, we'll
there'll
be
be
around.
some.
Yeah.
Now, is there any where there's still submissions coming in, right?
Yes.
What is happening with those now? Is there anything that you are picturing or envisioning past the Collected Confessions of Modern Love? Is there a Collected Confessions of Modern Love
Oh,
Part 2?
well, yeah, I'd love that. Yeah, so people can and do still submit to the website that I built post lockdown, because it didn't really make much sense still collecting, 5 years on at lockdown love stories. So it's complicated.com. My Yeah, I have loads of things that I want to do with it, because I think what the material really lends itself to being translated into lots of different forms. So obviously you got the book, but I also did like a billboard campaign where I put some of the stories across London on billboards over Valentine's Day to get some realness into the world, to counteract all the kind of like, couples goals and stuff. I put some of the slightly more realistic love stories out there. Um, and yeah, well, do you know what? I've got some things in the pipeline, but maybe I should come back on when they've come to fruition and talk about it
Yes,
more. But for now, please,
I would
everyone,
love
send
that.
their stories in.
Yes, I would love that. I think everybody should send their stories in. So it's dash complicated.com is where you can submit an anonymous, completely anonymous story, whether it's an ex story, a relationship story, a friendship story, complicated, or maybe just something you're very proud of.
Yeah,
Send it in.
exactly. Just something real, something like what is really going on
Yes.
in your love life. Maybe not the stuff that you would necessarily post about, but you can also, send me that as well because we love a happy story. Yeah,
But
just
we
maybe
love
read.
juicy.
Well, we love juicy. Yeah,
I
read the
love
book.
juicy and I love drama.
So yeah, so do I.
Everybody listening, if they could take away anything from all of these thousands of stories that you've had the opportunity to read, and one reminder about their own worth, what would that be?
Oh, you're not falling short. Like you are not failing to measure up. Um, it's a lie. It's like normally we get this idea because we go on social media and we're comparing our real, lived, nuanced, messy experience to a highlight reel, essentially, like it's a curated
Mhm.
edit. And, you know, as much as we can say that social media isn't real, it is skewering our perception. And we then judge ourselves against this skewed perception. And so, what the stories did for me is they were the proof, essentially, that it wasn't real. Because, I think as much as we can say online isn't real, until we see evidence to the contrary, we don't have anything, we can't fully believe it. And so, I can tell you that whatever you think you're going through, you are not the only one. You are not too much. You are not doing it wrong. It's just complicated.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much again for being here. It's been so wonderful. Make sure to send in all of your submissions. And if there's something that you want to say, but you want to say it anonymously without anyone knowing, but you want feedback, this is the perfect place to do it. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this weekend's episode with Philippa Found. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and all of the background and details and behind the scenes of how Philippa created this book and everything that it did for her and for the community, especially during lockdown and most especially right now in this moment. If you are interested in leaving an anonymous story about a situation, something that happened to you, something that's really amazing, or something that you really just want to get out there but don't want anybody to know it's about you, make sure to go to Philippa's website. Everything is linked down below. You leave your anonymous story there. Just because we are out of lockdown doesn't mean the juicy stories are behind us. I am sure that there are so many crazy, if I have the amount of crazy stories that I can think of in my off the top of my head, I am sure that you have one to share too. So, if you want to enter the confession room, aka Philippa's website, all of those details are in the description down below. In addition to all the details on where to pick up It's Complicated Collected Confessions of Messy Modern Love, because honestly, this is such a beautiful book. In and of itself, this is just such a beautiful book. I will see you guys next week, same time, 12 o'clock Eastern Time, every single Sunday. Bye.